Well, thank you for joining me. Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. I wanted to come on and make this video to try and share with men mainly. This is more for the men, but women are welcome to listen to it. What I've learned about conflict with women and how when it gets really, really serious, things can go with a lady. Now, it's not necessarily for all of them, but for the majority, I think this is true from my experience. I mean, a lot of the time when we have an argument with our partner and it's serious, we can go into a panic and we can begin to doubt that we'll ever speak to them again. In some cases we won't, depending on the influences around them and their values. When somebody gets rejected, it's very hard for them to try and understand the reasons why. But on the other hand, I suppose if you explain the reasons why and it's a situation where it can't be resolved or they don't want to have resolved, that can really make things complicated. But at the gym today, I was in the sauna, going through the cool down, the cool down from the gym, which is part of that is the sauna and showering and stuff like that. And I often get to talk to men from 80 years old to young guys down to 16, 17-year-old, and you listen and you learn, and sometimes you get the privilege to share some of your wisdom with these people. And I was in there with this very athletic young 17-year-old guy, and I wanted to share with him what I've learned about the crisis you can get into under the, how can I put it, when you're subject to a woman's nature. Now, personally, in reality, I don't think navigating a lady is all that hard. They really don't ask for much. They just ask for support. And one of the conflicts in later life, and even with my first marriage, was children, my own children included, that when things heat up, excuse me, and things get tough, or whatever, it could be financial, it could be different aspects of children and the way that we think they want to be treated or should be treated, the conflicts between parenting, say, the different aspects of conflict that you can have with a lady if the children aren't yours. All these different dynamics and the way in which they can work against you are important to understand, because the lady will react in different ways relative to how you're reacting and what you're saying that you need from these relationships. Now, sometimes the relationships can go really south, to put it mildly. You are trying to resolve things with her, she's trying to resolve things with you. You're doing everything to make that happen, but the pressure from the situations on her, particularly if it's a maternal pressure relative to children, is going to ignite, and this is how I like to explain it, is going to ignite a nature in her that you really want to try to avoid if you can. And when you ignite this part of a woman's nature, I explain it like a bushfire going through a forest. And I think I'll put a bushfire up if I can. Why don't we do that? We'll go bushfire. Bushfire. See what we get. Okay, so let's have a look at bushfire videos. Let's just go video. Just bear with me just to give it the you can also liken it to a flood. Oh, that's only a 1 minute satellite view. I want a bit more than 1 minute. Okay, let's look at this. No, I'm not interested in that. Let's have a look at this then. Okay, so we'll watch these bushfire photos, but what my point is with this is that when you get on the wrong side of a lady and she really gets really mad, you've separated, she doesn't talk to you anymore, it's like a bushfire going through and wrecking everything around it. It burned you with it. You're gone, you're burnt, you're finished. Best thing for you to do is to be finished. Because when you start to try and grapple or grab towards that person, if you've explained yourself, this is what my part of the problem was. I'm not sure what your part of the problem was. If you would, take for instance interference from children. Now she has to be a mother, okay? That's not an argument. She has to be a mother. There's absolutely no argument about that, and you shouldn't, as I've always said, get involved in a woman's maternal interests. But what you'll find is the problem can be the children getting involved in her private business with you, intercepting the arrangements that you're making with her, and disrupting, it's hard to explain. Like one of my conflicts with myself with the last lady was, am I being unkind to her, in the sense that she needs to be a mother? Well, then you've got to. What I tried to do was then I'll cut it into pieces and see if that's true. Well, me and her were going really well. We were seeing each other 5 nights a week. As older people, we wanted and enjoyed each other's company. We navigated each other well. We spoke, we talked, we had fun, we rested, we did all the normal things that you would do. But then we had a breakdown with one of her children, or a young man, and immediately things went downhill immediately. Now, none of this had anything to do with my performance. It was an objection, an outside objection, that really shouldn't have influenced her towards me whatsoever. There was nothing I was going to be able to do with it to help it. The child lived in the house, or the man lived in the house. He obviously had some conflicts of interest about me and her, but what she failed to understand was it was really none of his business. She knew I was performing well. She knew she was being treated right. But as soon as this happened, the whole thing started to spin out of control. As soon as it happened. Now, the problem for me was it wasn't my children. I had to respect her as a mother needing to deal with the son, but I also had to respect the investment that I was trying to make and where we had got our relationship to at that point. Now, the cost of this young man fighting to get his mother's attention back out of what was described as covert emotional incest behaviour, because that's what they developed. She made the son a surrogate partner. It's not the son's fault or her fault. They probably didn't even know what covert emotional incest was. Thank God I knew what it was, because it helped me to navigate the situation with swiftness and with as wisely as I could. The problem with it is, though, once a child starts and they are not getting control of the situation, they'll go infantile. They'll tend to go infantile. And this puts a lot of strain on the mother, because she starts to panic and think, oh, this relationship's causing that. It's putting a lot of pressure on this child of mine, and I could see the concern, because I was concerned. Like, the behavior was pretty bad, but I don't want that to be the focus. The focus is that when a woman's triggered maternally, it's like and she wants to respond to it. It's like a bushfire that's about to wreck everything. As hard as she tries for it not to, it does. And what I want to say to you guys is, let the bushfire burn you out. Burn out and go down and just lay down and let her go. Let her go. If you have explained yourself and it's legit, and she's not willing to try and sort anything out, and you've got these people against you, there's not much you can do about it. Really, there's not much you can do about it. If the relationship's gone backwards due to their interferences, you have to go as a male equally into alert for your self-preservation, because you're now in the middle of a maternal dysfunction that's impacting your masculine frame towards this woman. And she's just the meat in the sandwich. We spoke about all this, me and her. And so the bushfire's gone through, the relationship's ended. You've told her that you don't want to see her anymore because of whatever the reason is. In my case, it was, you won't leave your children out of our relationship, which was a violation to me as a man. But that was her life, and she was entitled to do that. And I had to make a decision. This is not healthy for anyone. Okay? And I said to her, it's probably best, I don't know what her life is really like without me there, but probably best if you don't take men near those boys of yours, because they're only going to upset the apple cart. And I don't think it's the first time it's happened, or it will be the last. I think this was a pattern of behaviour that will repeat itself, and I think it had a lot to do with the marriage and all of that, the way the father had to leave and all this stuff. Different story. Now, the relationship's finished, the bushfire has gone through, she's gone quiet, everything's dead. Now, you need to, as a man, and I'm speaking in spiritual language now, you need to be dead. You've let her know that what's happened. You may have had a squabble. She's not stupid. You've tried to say to her, look, I've tried to do this as caringly as I can. We're not getting anywhere. She's gone quiet. That's the bushfire going through, and just let everything die. Let it die. Okay? She knows you're there. She knows you care. But you're not stupid or foolish, and you're going to hold your principles and beliefs. Not to hurt anyone or destroy anyone, but just the fact that wisdom has to prevail, and it will. It's very hard when you're in love with somebody not to reach out and grasp out and, you know, all of this stuff. But when a woman's in bushfire mode, it's a waste of time. You're better off just being burnt to bits and getting on with your life and letting it work itself out that way. When you've separated with somebody anyway, whether they come back or not's irrelevant. You have to keep yourself on track, starting at the bottom and coming up. Now, my thing that you hear a lot on the coaching channels, and that is to become the best version of yourself. Well, what if you have maintained that in your relationship? Okay, what if you're spiritually well trained and healthy, you're intellectually healthy, you're physically healthy, you're training yourself in all these disciplines, and you're emotionally healthy, and you end up like this? Now, she'll know what your condition is, and she'll know that you can't produce any more out of yourself. You've given her nothing to fault you with, except the fact that you've asked her to go due to a situation that's outside your control, and it's a problem of hers that has intruded into the relationship in such a way that it's diminished. What do you do when you're all the necessary things for you to be a strong masculine man are in place, and the relationship fails? What do? You're going to have feelings for her. You're not going to want to lose this thing, but you've got to be wise as well. You're not going to stand there and let a child navigate your relationship. If you do that, she's going to see you as weak anyway. You're not going to stand there and squabble with some young bloke that's having trouble with his emotions and trying to twist you up in it. And you've got your relationship running really well up until this point. It's actually sabotage. That's what it's about. And if she hasn't got the passion and heart to protect you from that, then that's telling you something as well. My mother would never let us near her relationship. She knew too well. So you're in a state. You're starting to, she's gone, you've told her to go, or she's told you to go. I don't know why she would tell you to go, because you really haven't done anything that would cause that. In my case, I had to ask her to go because she was violating relationship principles. And I think this has been a problem for many women, and they will repeat their behaviour. So you start to ruminate. Oh, what's going to happen? Is she going to? You've got to find a way now to heal your mind. You've got to come back. You've got to draw all your energy back into yourself. Come back to yourself and learn a way in which you can heal. Now, she knows that you've tried as genuinely as you can to save the relationship, but it's just hasn't been fair. And if she doesn't realise that, it doesn't matter if she comes back or not anyway. This isn't about getting her back. This is about getting yourself back from a situation which has betrayed you. It hasn't been fair to you. So you've got to bring your energy back to yourself. You've got to die. You just go, okay, I'm going to die. It's the men that overdo trying to save something that can wreck things. Remember, I'm not just saying disappear. I'm saying you've explained yourself beyond fair. She knows your mind. She knows how you feel, and you've been fair. It might be abrasive. Sometimes you have to face issues in a way in which it causes pain, but the pain produces a better way, a better life. Sometimes you have to present yourself in a way in which it's going to be detrimental to you in the relationship at that time, only later for them to realise that the man was only trying to show me a way in which we could stay together longer and healthier without interference. And not to the neglect of the children or the pushing away of these people, but to just set up boundaries in a way in which everyone's going to get a fair go, instead of all this interruption and these untimely intrusions. You have to bring your energy back. you have to find a way to bring relief to your mind. Now, that might be speaking to friends that aren't biased. I recommend a therapist, if you can find a good one, because you need to have an outlet. You can ring up, in Australia, we've got Lifeline and these sorts of things where people will talk to you. Just vent yourself. Just keep expressing yourself. Don't overdo it with your family. Okay, try and find neutral, unbiased people that will listen to you initially, and then you've got to go to therapy after that to vent all the pain and frustrations out in a way in which you can progress on with your life as well as you can. Because you haven't meant to cause anybody harm. In the meantime, there'll be two things happening. They'll be getting on with their lives. Okay, she will be getting on with it, because you've got to remember, and this is a disadvantage to men. A lot of men get cranky with women that have children because they think all sorts of things that aren't right. 9 times out of 10, the mother will have covert emotional incest working between her and her sons. And that means she's got her children as her pretend husbands, as it were. That's exaggerating it a bit, but as a surrogate partner where she expresses herself, they're giving her opinions, and they're giving her their opinions, and they're functioning like adults, but you've got people that really haven't been out and lived. Okay, they haven't been in relationships long enough to understand. She should know better, but this is what they do, because they're on their own and the children are usually all they got. And the children think they know everything, but I'd love to have put one of them into my life to see how they'd go with that. That's the difference. This is where the woman misses it. They think their children know everything, but their children really... Come on, they haven't even, I don't want to be offensive, but they really haven't got out of the nest. So you're bringing your energy back. You've got turmoil and everything going on. You have to accept this is all predictable. So you should have in your toolbox ways in which you know how to maturely recover, to bring your energy back to yourself, get your mind away from the ruminating. It could take months, but the last thing you want to do is be hounding that woman. I'm not saying no contact, but what I am saying is you better have fully explained yourself wisely, thoroughly, and fairly in a way in which, whether she accepts it or not, you've shown how you feel, what the problem is, and she'll have to deal with it from there. And if she doesn't want to deal with it, that's fine, because you've split up. Okay, you've gotten to the point where you've split up. The bushfire's gone through and everything's wrecked. Now, in the meantime, don't worry. She'd be trying to, whether she's moved on or not's irrelevant. However she wants to mix with other men, doesn't matter. That's her business, it's her life. Whether she does or not, she might not. Don't know. Doesn't matter. That's not your business. You're focusing on yourself and trying to get yourself into a position where she's not overriding your mind. Okay? Trying to get your mind settled so that you can reconstitute your life and reinstitute yourself into different directions. You might meet people, women on the way. There's all different things that have to happen for you, but you need to let that person go. You have to let it go. In the meantime, these people will know that you're onto something. You've brought something to light. You're not a drunk, you're not an alcoholic, you're not a drug addict and all this sort of stuff. You're hopefully, now that's a whole different animal if you are. I'm talking about mature, sober-minded, full masculine frame people, because you've got an advantage if you're in that space. You've got respect. Whatever she thinks about you, she will know that you're on your game. She'll know that. And she'll know that by the way you've treated her and how you've been emotionally with her. Whether she thinks a man has to tolerate the behaviour of her children or not, it's her business, but you don't. You shouldn't even be engaging your children. Problem with this situation was they lived there. So what, we all tried to get on, but it didn't work. We had a breakdown. So this could take months. And I think the two big things that helped me was knowing that these things are predictable, knowing when it started to go downhill, watching what was going to happen, but in the meantime being prepared to go into recovery mode once it all went downhill. Now, you've explained what you want, nothing's happening and it's getting worse, you've broken up, you're going off to your therapist, you're ringing up the lifeline or whatever to keep yourself expressing yourself, how you feel, and eventually you'll begin to settle. You don't want to listen to people that are going to be biased. Oh, she's a bitch, she's that, oh, they shouldn't. That's not going to help anybody. You should have the maturity to understand that she was the meat and the sandwich of something that was very important to her besides you. Her and the children were going on with their lives for decades before you come along, or I come along. But at the same token, that's no excuse for you to be disrespected either. And that's where you got to know where you are in your life. Not a matter of whether she thinks it's right or not. You've got to know where you are, because there will be people that will respect you at the level that you should be respected. And if that's not them, then that's their bad luck. Now, they will know that you know something's wrong. Okay? And they'll try and bury it, they'll try and dodge it, but the universe doesn't work that way. Okay? So they'll end up one way or another being confronted with themselves. So it's going to be up and down and round and all that other stuff when you're gone. And you leave that to them. They meet somebody else. Well, don't worry, because the same thing, if not worse, will happen to them. The next person. It's predictable. If you were performing well, and that's how it ended up, well, it's going to end up that way for the next person as well, probably quicker and probably worse. So you don't worry about that either. As a matter of fact, let them implode, because they will. You'll be in the back of a mind. That man was trying to show me wisdom. That man was trying to just be honest and help us. The problem was, very personal for both of us, and so on. Time goes by. You let it go. When a bushfire goes through, and you get rains and things, the green foliage and everything starts to grow again. And whether she's moved on or not, whether she's with another man or not, it doesn't matter. You, because of your integrity and your honesty, will regrow in her heart and her mind. And she'll start to think back. Because time's passed and things have settled. You're gone. Things aren't the same. She's starting to feel a conscience and her love for you, which she would have. And she's starting to understand what you meant. She's got this other person that doesn't know about her the way you do. But again, that's irrelevant. But that would be working on her as well. Because if you presented yourself well and she knows that you brought 100%, then the other person's not going to matter, because she'll be in her heart growing back. You'll be growing back in her heart because you were in the bushfire, not the new person. The new person, if there is one, is probably just a way of her feeling better about herself because you've hurt her and taken away her self-esteem. But matters of conscience and matters of reality will overplay these other ways of trying to fix things. And that is where respect comes back. When the shoots start to grow in her heart again, and the reality of who you were and what you were trying to say comes back again. But this time, because time has allowed her to understand, she sees the wisdom that you were trying to show her, and her conscience will remind her, her heart and mind will remind her that you were important to her. Too often when we face a breakup, we go into a panic, and while she's having a bushfire, we're throwing petrol on it. And it's instinctive. But we aren't trained to fail. We're not trained to understand that these things can be predictable. Now, and this is what concerns me about men. They haven't got the equipment to understand that things will fail, and when they fail, you have to go down with the ship. When you go down with the ship, you've fired the flares, you've waved the flags, you've tried to dodge the torpedoes, you've been bombed, hit, smashed. It's time to sink. Okay? Just sink. Because she will come looking for you. Whether it be physical or not, in her mind and her heart, she'll be laying in that bed, remembering how much you loved her and wanted to be with her, and how hard you tried, and, you know, she knows. She knows. And whether she comes back or not, between her and God, or her and the universe, or whatever is important to her, the tears will come to her eyes. It's just human nature. It doesn't matter how much she hates you, how much resentment or bitterness she had towards you. This is what will happen. And it will happen with the people before you as well. You're not the be-all and end-all. This is just human nature and how it works. So you will revisit her in a positive way later down the track. Okay, and whether she despises that within herself or accepts that within herself, or both. This is the quandary that women often find themselves in. Now, this could be the time that she decides that it's time to just say hello and see how you're faring and all the rest of it. And what you want to do with that is up to you. Usually by this time, we've moved on as well. And karma's got an interesting way of dealing with things. If you come out of a relationship and you've been integral, that integrity will carry you on to meet somebody else that will possibly and hopefully be more in tune with you and look after you in a way in which these issues won't sabotage you. For her, her karma will work in a different way, because she's got issues that could have been fixed but haven't been. And they will follow on with her into the next relationship, because she never had the courage or the mentality or the value to deal with it while you were there. So she's let you go by way of you not accepting where she was willing to take the solution. Excuse me. So my point is this. And I know, because I've got daughters, and I've listened and sat with my daughters through some of their relationship stuff. And I've had the privilege to do that without being impersonal with them or getting too nosy. You will not be forgotten. You will not. And just two examples before I finish. My children's mother, who I was married to some 25 years ago, we had a birthday party last night at the local hotel for a child that she had to a man after me, after the marriage ceased, and she moved on and married another man, and they had children, and they had a party for this child last night. And I went down along, and the uncle was there, and we sat together and we did what we always used to do. We just had a nice night. So we had to carpool. On the way home, I took the mother home, the ex-wife home. We sat out the front waiting for everybody else to come, and she spoke to me, excuse me, and she said what life was like after me. And she cried and a little bit. And she reassured me that her life wasn't what she expected after our family was divided. And when you hear these sorts of things, it's very sobering, because you wonder what life has done for these people, to these people. And it's not always good news. It's not always good news. Because we're not meant to swap and change. We're not meant to start families and they break down. And we're not meant or designed for that. Something happens inside us. Shame and guilt and all this other stuff happens inside us. And things don't go well. Particularly for women, because they do damage very easily. And it was very sad, but what it showed me was she still loved me after all these years. And we sit together and we can talk together and we can do things together because of our history. And I had a few girlfriends in between that, and they still all have respect for me. Then my second wife, we had some pretty, and a lot of you would have seen her in some of the videos early on the channel. We had some issues with her children and we separated as a result. And that was fueled by her children. The problem was never between us. She knew that she had to remove her children from the environment because it was just falling apart. The problem wasn't between us. We had some conflicts about it, but she knew that she had to withdraw because the children were just not in unity with what was going on. Very similar to my last partner. And she moved away, and this time we had a payout for her on the estate. She drew on the estate. I saved the estate. And you go through the motions and you think, oh, well, that's the end of that and we'll never talk again. And then the bushfire's gone through, and then it could be 12 months or whatever. In this case, it was 12 months. You get a text. I still love you, so on and so forth. I don't want to be too impersonal or make out that I'm boasting, because it's not about that. It's about female nature. And maybe I'm just lucky. I don't know. I chose to live a sober, athletic, business style of life. And although it's caused conflict along the way, I think ultimately they knew that I was trying to lead us all in the right direction. And the sad part is we're just about to be divorced very soon, in the next month or so. She wants to come back. And it's just not possible. So she came today and she had a little bit of lunch and we had a little talk, and she was very tired and worn out with it all. Because believe me, men, as good as it looks, or as good as you think it is for them, it's not. It's just not. It's just not. And if you can maintain a level of respect with those ladies, they will come back to you. But you have to be humble about that, not prideful. They know your frame and how you feel about things. They've learnt that you're only trying to be wise. God forbid, hopefully you were. and they won't forget that they can rely on you and that they are safe, and they know now what to keep away from you in principle that will aggravate you. If they've got any brains, they're going to backstab you. My wife's got a boyfriend. Wife right now has got a boyfriend. He wouldn't know that she wants to come back. See, women will monkey branch around and they'll always have a plan B and all this sort of stuff. You've got to be aware of these things and accept it or stay out of it. But my point is, if you've been hard and you've caused a breakup, if you allow time to pass without being a nuisance, as hard as that might be, get therapy. You just go pay for it. I paid thousands for mine. I think I can honestly say from my experience, they will come back. And if they don't, it doesn't matter. Really, it doesn't matter. It's going to hurt probably for the rest of your life. But you must be the best you can be for yourself. I chose not to abuse my mind as a teenager. And I've seen so much sadness and loss of life and harm as a result of substances and alcohol and all that stuff. And I look at it and I thank God that I was able to make that choice. I thank God. And I mean it when I say that, because I've seen so much harm. And suffered loss as well. But if you're honest, your hardness and the things that you brought to the surface that needed to be fixed, if they're truly fair, even though they caused a breakup, one day she will be thankful that you had the courage to try and show a way in which was going to help everybody, even though she couldn't see it at the time. She will be thankful, even if you never hear from her again. And you need to be able to pull out of that situation and be the best person that you can be for yourself and the next lady or whatever you choose to do who comes into your life. Because it's possible to do that through forgiveness, through trauma therapy, through sharing your story with people that you can trust without just whinging and carrying on, in a way in which is going to heal you and relieve you from all the conflict and enmity that can come from these types of losses, serious losses that will damage you and stay with you for the rest of your life. I think one of the greatest things that I've had happen to me in my life is the fact that these tremendous ladies, for all the losses they have suffered through the breakups and things, somehow by the grace of God have been able to remain my friend. And that is something that I'll take to the grave and be grateful for at the end of my life. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Bye for now.